Hey guys, Alf here. Recently I watched it and I thought I'd make a little video and give you guys my thoughts on it. Um, in simple terms, I enjoyed it. I thought it was really good. I liked it a lot. Um, Especially in terms of like being a modern mainstream horror movie, because nowadays it's really hard to get a really good mainstream horror movie like on in the theaters and stuff. We don't get too many good ones anymore, and it seems like that's because they're all clones of each other basically. Like right now it's like all clones of like Paranormal Activity and Insidious, because those got real popular. It seems like that's what Hollywood does with horror movies these days, or maybe has always done. But basically, you get one real big horror movie that's its own movie, stands out on its own, and then for like the next decade you get clones of that movie, right? So I think it is going to be one of those movies now where we're going to get a bunch of clones of it for the next 10 years, because it does stand out on its own. That's not saying that it doesn't have its own like little cliches in there, but it really has its own feel. And I can't really compare it to any other movie exactly, um in comparison to the old movie, um or to the old 2 episode miniseries on TV. I can't really say if I like it better or not. They're both good at different things, and they're both missing certain things. Especially as a fan of the book, um, the book. When it comes to the book, I enjoyed the book a lot because it tells the story in a strange way, which neither adaptations do. And in the book, it's like dealing with it makes you forget about it afterwards. So in the book is told. The book, it takes place as they're adults, and it goes back into each of their memories as flashbacks of them being kids, in order for them to remember what happened. So as they're remembering it, we're getting their memories of it. And sometimes the memories are wrong. Sometimes they remember things differently. So it's a really cool concept, and something that I guess is difficult to capture on film. So they don't really do it when they adapt it. So this new one is adapted using the same similar formula as the old adaptation, the TV version, whereas you get the kids' story first and then the adult one later. This movie does not have the adult version. This movie is just the kids' version. And I guess since it did well, it's doing really well in the theaters. They will make a part two, and that will be the adult story, and they'll finish the story of it. Um, I did have a nitpick where I didn't like Pennywise's voice. I liked Pennywise. He was done really well. And I'll go more into what I liked about Pennywise and how they handled Pennywise. But the one nitpick I had is I really didn't like his voice. Like the way they used, I don't know if it was the actor's voice or they probably put an effect on it, but the effect, I just didn't like it. It didn't seem to fit the character. Even this version, I'm not even talking about it, the character from the book or from the old show. The way they portrayed it in this movie, the voice just seemed really off, and it didn't fit well. But that's a nitpick, and it didn't ruin the movie for me. There were times where his voice, when he would try to be real or turning to be real scary, the voice would work out well, and I enjoyed it. Um, Another thing I liked about it is, well, this might be a spoiler because I don't know if they'll do this at some point in the movie or in the sequel. They don't really explain what it is, right? You get small explanations, but if you've read the book, you know that it is an extra dimensional being. It comes from another dimension, and kind of exists in both dimensions. It has a way to come in every 27 years and exists in both dimensions. I think this is portrayed very well in this movie, and it wasn't portrayed well in the old adaptation, which is why I say sometimes the older adaptation does better than this one. In some aspects, this one does better. This definitely captured it being an extra dimensional being better, even without explaining it, because it's a certain effect that happens when he moves, and yeah, when he's like moving, or when they show him at certain angles, like you get a certain effect. I don't even know how to explain it, but if you've seen the movie, you'll understand that he has a certain effect about his movement or his presence, and I think that really, I think it's cool because it really portrays how he's an extra dimensional being and not really fully part of our reality, right? Or our dimension. So I think people who understand that aspect of Pennywise will enjoy that. But people who don't, I guess, won't really get it. But you maybe if they explain it in the second one, then in hindsight, you'll be like, oh, that's why it looks like that when he's moving. That's why there's that certain, I guess, a filter or effect. It's hard to explain, but if you watch the movie, you'll get it. Um, Another thing is I like the aspect of them working off their fears, but that was done in the old one as well. That's pretty much the same. They do it in slightly different ways, and they had to change certain things. But one thing this movie is lacking is, I think, is the feel of the Losers Club, like how much their friendship is. You got that more in the original adaptation. You definitely got the feel of how much how good friends they were. Um, in this one, you don't get that as much. There's a lot of new members that come into the Losers Club, and I guess there's not enough time to build their connections or how much they really care about each other. In the old one, it kind of felt like when you started watching it, they already did care about each other, right? They were already a very tight knit group, and you got that already. You got that impression already off the bat. And this one, it's like there's a few of them that are close. You get that, but then they start joining in. Like you don't really feel Mike is he joins in he's the last one to join in. You don't really feel like he's a very emotional part of the group. Like really invested in the group. Beverly comes in new. Uh, they went a different way with Beverly's character. She seems like a very different character. She also seems older than the rest of them, but I don't dislike it. I was like, okay, like her character, it didn't ruin her character. It's just it's just different, and I didn't mind it so much. I did like how they portrayed how all the members of the Losers Club have their own thing that makes them an outcast or a loser. Supposedly, that worked out well. The bullies, that they're always chased by bullies. That was in the original adaptation as well. Bullies were done pretty well. They went more into how, I forget his name, the main bully guy. They went more into like why he's the way he is, and how much of a fucking sadistic douchebag he is. They definitely went more into it than they did in the TV adaptation, which is something they did better. But like I said, the old adaptation, I feel, showed their friendship better and character development better. This one seemed kind of rushed. Not rushed, but they rushed through the character development in each character's. Um, Not that they worked on the characters' background stories pretty well, but how they connected to each other was kind of rushed, and that's a main part of the book. Um, this is the way I view it, right? Like the story of it from the book. It's kind of like, you remember the movie Stand By Me, which was also by Stephen King, right? It says four close friends going on an adventure and bonding more with bullies chasing them. That's what it is, but it's the horror version where where instead of them searching for a dead body, they're searching for it to destroy it and stop it from, it's like, it's kind of funny. It's Stand By Me, but instead of them looking for a dead body, they're looking for an extra dimensional child eating clown to destroy it, which sounds kind of goofy, but yeah, that's basically what it is. If you read the book, that's how it feels. It's very nostalgic. It brings you back to the feeling of when you were a child and had your group of friends and you were all really close and you go on these little adventures and stuff. That's basically what it is. People see it as a horror book, but it's really an adventure book in the horror genre, right? So this movie doesn't capture that as well. It does have moments where you feel that, but it doesn't capture it as well. This is more straight horror, and but I enjoyed that. I enjoyed it a lot, man. They did really good. I think Pennywise came out really well. I was very skeptical on Pennywise when I saw what he looked like. I didn't dig it at all. I was like, I'm not liking how this looks. But watching it in motion and watching when he opens his mouth, you see like a big rows of myriad teeth, and it works great. They did the deadlights really well. If you've read the book, you know what the deadlights are. But if you remember in the old movie, it was like it turned into a spider at the end and lifted up, and you saw this like glow in his chest. That's the deadlights, and that's kind of like looking into an aspect of the other dimension. And in this movie, they did it well. Like he opens his mouth, and you see it inside his mouth, and the deadlights look exactly like how Stephen King describes in the book. So they did a good job at that, and I enjoyed that very much. An aspect of the book they cut out was the antithesis of it is, or Pennywise, however you want to call him, is a turtle. It's kind of like an extra dimensional turtle god, which a lot of people see as silly, but I enjoy it. I think that's kind of like the supernatural version of the book, part of the book where one of them gets to go to the other dimension and speak to this thing and have a great more of an understanding of what Pennywise is and what this extra dimensional being is, and that helps them very much. So that works out. The whole concept of teamwork and not fearing Pennywise is what is like what his weakness is. That came out very well. So all in all, I think it's a good movie. I enjoyed it very much. It did capture parts of the original story. It still left some out. That's always going to happen with movie adaptations because fuck, like it is like over 1,000 fucking pages, and you're not going to get that all in a 2-hour movie, right? Even if you split, even half of that is not going to all be in a 2-hour movie. So yeah, I'm excited for the second one. I'm excited to see how the adult part works out. I guess if you've seen the old adaptation and if you read the book, you have a concept of what's going to happen with a lot of these characters. So no surprises there. For new viewers, it's hard for me to explain how a new viewer would witness this. But in general, as its own movie, great. As an adaptation, just good, maybe. I enjoyed it a lot, so I guess if you're like me, you will enjoy it. But I'm pretty good at being unbiased with films and judging films on their own merit. So as an adaptation of the book, it's hard to say if I like the original adaptation or this one better. I think they both did good in their own aspects. But yeah, I think they both did good in their own aspects, but in different ways. You know what I'm saying? The old TV series captures certain things good, well, while the other one doesn't, and vice versa. But the one good thing is the new film captures a lot of the goriness and horror that the original adaptation couldn't, because it was on TV, especially on TV in the early 90s. You know what I'm saying? They couldn't capture a lot of that stuff that broadcast television even, right? So, they had a lot of censorship, couldn't do a lot of bloody things. For instance, in the original and the opening scene in both, as everybody remembers, the iconic scene of Georgie going to the sewer and the clown saying, "They all float down here," right? In the original, they really show the goriness of what happens when Georgie gets taken. And this one they do. You see Georgie get his arm ripped off, and he's on the floor trying to crawl away with one arm, and the other arm's missing, blood pouring out, and then he gets dragged into the sewer. You couldn't see that in the original. Now you could. That's an example of what they could do now that they couldn't before. But yeah, see, I said I was going to do quicker reviews, and look at this, I keep going. But at least this has way less edits, and I'm just talking straight through. But yeah, in the end, I think it is awesome. I think you guys should watch it. I think all the praise it's getting is well deserved. I could see how fans of the book may not like this as much as people who haven't read the book, because it's not a direct adaptation, and it's missing a lot of parts that actually make the book really good. Like I said, the nostalgia aspect, the feeling of being a kid again and stuff. Like Stephen King's really good at writing children and writing that feeling of being just before becoming a teenager and having friends at that age and stuff and going on adventures. Stephen King is great at capturing that. The movie does not capture that as well. But all in all, fucking good. Go watch it. Judge it for yourself. But if you wanted to look to me to find out what I think it's awesome. Think it's good. Can't wait for the sequel. See you guys later.
Oh, well, I'm Pennywise the dancing clown. Now we aren't strangers, are we?